All right, so you want to make sense of all these economic signals that are flying around us right now,
Yeah.
especially what the experts are actually doing with their money,
Right.
not just what they're saying.
Yeah.
And when it comes to big moves, I mean, nobody is really quite as fascinating to watch as Warren Buffett.
Right.
His latest actions really have everyone wondering, is the Oracle of Omaha, like,
Yeah.
sensing a storm on the horizon? Is this...
Well, it's interesting you say that because
Yeah.
what makes Buffett such a fascinating case study is that he's not just sitting on a pile of cash.
Right.
He's amassed this record-breaking $325 billion war
It's
chest.
a lot of money.
It is a lot of money,
Yeah.
even bigger than before the 2008 crash.
Oh, wow.
This from a guy who famously prefers equities over cash for long-term growth.
So is this just savvy investing, or is this a sign that even Buffett is, like, kind of spooked?
Yeah, it's tough to say for sure,
Yeah.
but we can look at some historical parallels. Back in 2006, when this thing called the Buffett Indicator, which is the ratio of the total stock market value to GDP,
Okay.
was at a similar level to where it is today.
Mm.
It signaled that a significant market correction was coming.
Okay.
And guess what? 2 years later, the financial crisis hit.
So are we looking at like a repeat of 2008? Is that what you're
It
saying?
wouldn't go that far.
Okay.
But there are other signals that are also flashing red.
Like what?
You've got this thing called the KPE ratio, which looks at stock prices relative to their long-term earnings.
Sure.
That's currently higher than it was before the 1929 crash.
Wow.
Yeah. And while it's true that the market can stay irrational longer than anyone can stay solvent,
Right.
history suggests that some caution is probably warranted here.
Okay, so that's scary.
Yeah.
And it's not just those indicators, right? I mean, Buffett is actively selling shares of Apple and Bank of America.
Right.
Those are two bellwethers of the American consumer, the domestic economy.
Right.
What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, it suggests that he is concerned about a potential downturn in consumer spending, broader slowdown in economic growth.
Mm.
He could be anticipating a recession or at least a significant correction in the stock market.
And yet, in his investor letter, he still maintains that he prefers equities over cash. So,
Right.
like, what's going on? Is he sending mixed signals?
I think, that's why it's so crucial to pay attention to what investors are doing,
Right.
not just what they're saying.
Actions speak louder than words.
Actions speak louder than words, especially when you're talking about billions of dollars.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Okay, so we've got Buffett building his cash reserves. You've got these market indicators flashing red. You've got these specific stock sales that are hinting at trouble ahead.
Right.
Are there any other warning signs that we should be paying attention to?
Let's talk about the bond market,
Okay.
particularly the yield curve.
Okay.
You see, typically, long-term interest rates are higher than short-term rates.
Right, because...
You'd expect
yeah.
to be compensated for the added risk of tying your money up for a longer period of time.
Makes sense.
It's like getting paid extra for your patience.
Yeah, yeah.
But when the yield curve inverts, and what I mean by that is when short-term rates are actually higher than long-term rates,
Oh, okay.
that's often a sign that investors are really worried about the near-term economic outlook.
Okay.
And they're fleeing to the safety of long-term bonds,
Right.
even if it means accepting lower yields.
I see.
Yeah.
So this inversion, that's been happening for a while now, right?
It has been happening for a while, and it's not just a slight inversion.
Oh,
The 10-year Treasury yield is trading significantly below the Fed funds rate.
okay.
This is a level of inversion that we haven't seen in decades.
Wow.
And historically, this kind of extreme inversion has accurately predicted recessions about 90% of the time.
So is this inverted yield curve like a surefire sign that a recession is inevitable? Like, is it going to happen?
Well, no economic indicator is foolproof. Right. But the yield curve inversion, coupled with Buffett's actions and these other market signals,
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely painting a pretty concerning picture.
Okay, so we've got these big picture signals flashing red.
Yeah.
But what about the nitty-gritty economic data?
Right.
Are there any cracks starting to show at the ground level, so to speak?
Yeah, think of it like a dam holding back a reservoir of economic activity.
Okay.
A few cracks might not be a big deal,
Right.
but when they start to multiply and widen,
Yeah.
you really have to pay attention.
Okay.
And right now, we're seeing quite a few cracks emerging.
So give us the rundown. What kind of cracks are we talking about?
Well, corporate bankruptcies are on the rise.
Okay.
Remember Joan Fabrics?
Yeah.
They just shuttered all 800 of their stores.
Oh, wow. That's right.
We're also seeing layoffs at major companies like Starbucks,
Wow.
and giants like Walmart and McDonald's are issuing warnings about consumer spending.
And I read that pending home sales are at a 25-year low.
Yeah, that's pretty alarming.
It really feels like something is going on with consumer confidence, right?
Absolutely. And jobless claims are starting to tick upwards,
Okay.
while consumer sentiment is plummeting.
So bad news all around.
Well, all of these individual data points, when taken together, suggest that the economic engine might be sputtering.
Yeah, it feels like all of these little cracks are like converging into this bigger problem.
Precisely. And that's why it's so crucial to understand this domino effect.
Okay.
When consumers get worried, they cut back on spending.
Right.
This hurts businesses, which then leads to layoffs and further economic contraction.
Right.
The stock market reacts, it drops further, eroding confidence even more.
It's a vicious cycle.
It is a vicious cycle.
So what you're saying is that even if we avoid a full-blown recession,
Right.
we could be in for a rough ride.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, especially given the current global dynamics.
Oh, okay.
And that's something that we should probably delve into a little bit more,
Oh.
because it just adds another layer of complexity to the whole situation.
All right, well, let's talk about those global dynamics then.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got trade wars, you've got rising protectionism,
Right.
a whole lot of tension between the U.S. and its allies.
Yeah.
It feels like the world is getting a lot less friendly these days.
It's definitely a more fractured world than we've seen in, recent decades. And this trend towards protectionism, while perhaps well-intentioned,
Yeah.
could have some unintended consequences for the global economy.
Right.
Remember those steel and aluminum tariffs a while back?
Yeah.
They sparked retaliatory measures from the EU, Canada, Mexico,
Right.
ultimately hurting American businesses and consumers in the process.
So it's like a lose-lose situation.
It can be, yeah.
And then you've got China,
Right.
the elephant in the room. They're expanding their global influence,
Right.
while the U.S. share of imports from China is actually declining.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic.
Are they a friend, a foe, or like somewhere in between?
Well, I mean, China's economic power is undeniable.
Good.
They've been accumulating gold, diversifying their holdings, and strategically building relationships with other countries.
Okay.
And here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Major holders of U.S. Treasury bonds, like China and Japan, they're selling. They're not buying.
Wait, why is that a big deal? Doesn't the U.S. government always need someone to buy its debt?
They do.
Yeah.
But with trillions of dollars in new debt on the horizon,
Yeah.
the question is who's going to buy it if not these traditional buyers?
Right.
And at what cost?
Yeah.
If the demand for U.S. debt starts to dwindle,
Yeah.
it could have significant implications for interest rates, the dollar,
Oh, wow.
the overall health of the U.S. economy.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah.
We've got Buffett sending out these warning signals. You've got the red flags in the stock and bond markets.
Yeah.
You've got cracks appearing in the economic data. And then this whole layer of global uncertainty thrown into the mix.
Yeah. It's a lot to process.
It's not exactly a recipe for optimism, is it?
Well, I think it's definitely a time for cautious optimism.
No.
While no one can predict the future with absolute certainty,
Right.
this confluence of factors suggests that we need to be prepared for a potentially bumpy ride ahead.
So what can we do about it? Should we all be running for the hills and stocking up on canned goods?
Well, hold on now.
Yeah.
Panicking is never a good strategy.
Right.
But being proactive, being informed,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
And that's what we'll dive into next.
Okay.
How you can take control of your financial well-being and whatever economic storms might be brewing.
Because even if there are some dark clouds on the horizon,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean we're totally powerless, right?
Exactly. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And by understanding the risks and opportunities ahead,
Yeah.
we can make informed decisions that empower us to navigate this uncertain landscape.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so stay tuned.
Yeah. There's a valuable lesson in Buffett's strategy that
Yeah.
we can all apply, even if we don't have billions of dollars to throw around.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the Buffett wisdom for the rest of us?
Well, it's about strategic patience.
Okay.
He's not panicking, he's preparing.
Right.
Building that cash pile allows him to seize opportunities when others are forced to sell.
I see.
So think of it as positioning yourself to buy low when the market dips.
So instead of seeing this as a time to panic, maybe it's a time to plan.
Exactly.
But most of us don't have Buffett's buying power, so what can we realistically do to prepare?
Well, I think it starts with understanding your own risk tolerance.
Okay.
If you're nearing retirement,
Yeah.
you might want to consider shifting some of your portfolio into less volatile assets like bonds.
Okay.
While they may not offer the same growth potential as stocks,
Right.
they can provide stability and income during turbulent times.
But wouldn't that mean missing out on potential gains if the market continues to climb?
Well, it's a trade-off,
Yeah.
You're essentially prioritizing preservation of capital over potential growth.
Right.
And remember, diversification is key here.
Okay.
You don't want all your eggs in one basket, especially when there are storm clouds on the horizon.
That's what everyone always says, but it's easier said than done.
Right.
I mean, there's so many investment options out there. How do you even know where to start?
Well, that's where a financial advisor can be really invaluable.
Okay.
They can help you create a portfolio that aligns with your specific goals, your risk tolerance, your time horizon.
Okay.
But even if you're not ready to talk to an advisor, there are some basic things you can do
Okay.
to shore up your finances.
All right. Give me the top 3. What should everyone be doing, regardless of their financial situation?
First and foremost, build an emergency fund.
Okay.
Ideally, you should have 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved up.
All right.
This will give you a cushion to fall back on if you lose your job or face unexpected expenses.
That's the classic rainy day fund advice.
Exactly.
But sometimes it feels impossible to save when everything is so expensive.
Well, even small amounts add up over time.
Okay.
Start by automating a small transfer from your checking account to a savings account each month.
Okay.
You can also look for ways to cut back on unnecessary expenses.
Right.
Even small changes can make a big difference over time.
All right. What's number 2 on the financial preparedness checklist?
Tackle your debt.
Okay.
High interest debt like credit cards
Yeah.
can really eat into your budget.
Yeah, for sure.
You might consider consolidating your debt, negotiating lower interest rates with your creditors,
Okay.
or even taking on a side hustle to generate some extra income.
A side hustle.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, especially with the gig economy booming these days.
Exactly.
Not only can it help you pay off debt,
Right.
but it also gives you a sense of security, right?
Yeah.
In case your primary income source is disrupted.
It's all about building multiple streams of revenue,
Okay.
becoming less reliant on a single paycheck.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And this leads to the third point, becoming more self-sufficient.
Wait, are we talking about prepping our finances or prepping for, like, a zombie apocalypse?
Not quite that extreme,
Okay.
but think about it.
Yeah.
Learning basic skills like cooking, gardening, home repairs,
Right.
these can go a long way
Yeah.
in helping you become more resilient,
I see. Okay.
less dependent on others.
So it's not just about hoarding supplies, it's about building skills and resourcefulness.
Exactly.
That could come in handy during any kind of disruption, whether it's an economic downturn or a natural disaster.
Exactly. It's about empowering yourself,
Okay.
becoming less reliant on these external systems.
That's actually a really empowering way to think about it.
Yeah.
But let's face it, even if we do all of that,
Right.
get our personal finances in order, there are these bigger forces at play that are totally out of our control. You've got global tensions, political instability, the rise of new technologies.
Right.
It can all feel pretty overwhelming,
It's true. We are living in a time of accelerated change and uncertainty.
Yeah.
But instead of feeling overwhelmed by all of that,
Right.
let's shift our perspective a little bit
Okay.
and focus on what we can control.
Okay. I'm willing to give it a try. What's the first step?
It starts with staying informed. We need to understand the forces that are shaping the world around us
Okay.
so we can make informed decisions about our lives and our finances.
That's what we're doing right now, right? Diving deep into these topics, trying to make sense of it all.
Exactly. And beyond just staying informed,
Yeah.
we also need to cultivate this mindset of adaptability. The
Hmm.
world is changing faster than ever before,
Right.
and those who can adapt and evolve will be the ones who thrive.
So what does that look like in practice? I mean, how can we become more adaptable in a world that feels like it's constantly shifting beneath our feet?
Well, it starts with being open to new experiences, willing to step outside of our comfort zones.
Like
We
that.
need to be lifelong learners, constantly seeking out new knowledge and new skills.
Yeah.
And we need to be flexible, able to pivot and adjust our course as needed.
So it's not just about having a plan A, it's about having a plan B, C, and D.
Exactly, because in a world of constant change,
Yeah.
the ability to adapt
Mhm.
is more valuable than any specific plan.
Okay.
Think of it like this.
Okay.
Imagine you're sailing a boat in a storm.
Okay.
You can't control the wind or the waves,
Right.
but you can adjust your sails and your course to navigate through the rough waters.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah,
It's about being prepared to tack and jibe,
Yeah,
to adjust to the changing conditions and stay afloat.
precisely. And that same principle applies to navigating the economic and geopolitical storms that we've been discussing today.
Okay, I'm feeling a little more empowered already,
Good.
but I can't help but wonder,
Yeah.
is there anything else that we can be doing beyond just taking care of ourselves?
Right.
I mean, shouldn't governments be doing more to protect us from these potential economic storms?
That's a great question,
Yeah.
and it raises a complex issue.
Okay.
There are different schools of thought on the role of government in the economy.
Right.
Some argue for more intervention,
Okay.
with governments taking an active role in managing the economy through fiscal and monetary policies.
Okay.
Others advocate for the laissez-faire approach,
Right.
where the government's role is limited to just providing a stable framework for the market to operate.
So it's a spectrum of opinions, no easy answers.
Exactly.
But what are some of the specific tools that governments have at their disposal to address potential economic turmoil?
Well, on the fiscal side, they can adjust government spending and taxes
Okay.
to either stimulate the economy or curb inflation.
Okay.
For example, increasing spending on infrastructure projects
Right.
could create jobs and boost demand,
Okay.
while tax cuts could put more money in people's pockets.
I see.
On the monetary policy side,
Yeah.
they can adjust interest rates and the money supply. Lowering interest rates could encourage borrowing and investment,
Okay.
while increasing the money supply could make it easier for businesses to access credit.
Right.
But of course, these measures can also have unintended consequences, such as inflation.
So it's a delicate balancing act, it sounds like.
It is.
But it sounds like governments do have a role to play in mitigating economic risks, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in addition to those fiscal and monetary policies,
Yeah.
governments can also implement regulations to protect consumers, workers, and the environment.
Right.
For example, they can establish rules governing financial institutions
Yeah.
to prevent those risky lending practices that got us into trouble in the past,
Right.
or impose stricter environmental regulations to combat climate change.
Right. It's about creating a framework that promotes economic stability and protects people from harm.
Exactly.
But what about this whole new world order that we keep hearing about?
Yeah.
Is it just a bunch of conspiracy theories, or is there something real to it?
I think it's fair to say that we are witnessing a pretty significant shift in the global balance of power,
Okay.
that post-World War II order. With the U.S. as this dominant superpower,
Right.
it's being challenged by the rise of new powers like China
Yeah.
and the resurgence of some old ones like Russia.
So it's a more multipolar world, no single country calling all the shots.
Exactly.
What does that mean for everyday people? Like, what does that actually look like?
Well, it means we're living in a more complex and unpredictable world.
Okay.
The old rules of the game are being rewritten. Alliances are shifting.
Right.
We're seeing this play out in the form of trade wars, military buildups, and these proxy conflicts.
It sounds a bit like a geopolitical thriller, with the stakes getting higher all the time.
It does have that feel to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, so how do we navigate this new world order? It feels like so much is out of our control.
Well, while we can't control global events, we can control how we respond to them.
Okay.
We can focus on building resilience,
Okay.
both individually and as a society.
I like that. What are some specific things we can do to build resilience in the face of these geopolitical shifts?
Well, one important step is to diversify our economies.
Okay.
We've seen how relying too heavily on a single supplier, like China,
Yeah.
can make us vulnerable to disruptions.
Right.
We need to develop more robust and resilient supply chains.
So spreading the risk, so to speak.
Well, exactly.
Okay. What else?
We also need to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels
Okay.
and transition to a more sustainable energy future.
Right.
This will not only help mitigate climate change,
Yeah.
but it'll also reduce our vulnerability to these energy shocks and geopolitical instability.
Makes sense. Energy independence is a key part of national security.
Absolutely.
What other steps can we take to build resilience as a society?
We need to invest in education and innovation.
Okay.
We need to equip ourselves with the skills and knowledge
Yeah.
to adapt to this rapidly changing world.
Right.
And we need to create a more inclusive and equitable society, one that provides opportunities for all.
That's a big agenda.
It is a big agenda.
But it sounds like it's not just about weathering the storms, it's about creating a better future.
Exactly. And that brings us to the role of technology in this new world order.
Okay.
Technology is both accelerating these changes
Right.
and providing us with the tools to adapt to them.
It's a double-edged sword, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. On the one hand, you've got technologies like artificial intelligence automation, biotechnology.
Right.
They're disrupting industries, transforming societies, even reshaping the nature of work itself.
Yeah, it's crazy.
On the other hand, these same technologies,
Yeah.
they also hold the potential to solve some of the world's most pressing challenges,
Right.
from climate change to poverty to disease.
So it's a matter of how we choose to wield these powerful tools.
Precisely, we need to be thoughtful and intentional about how we develop and deploy these technologies,
Yeah.
ensuring that they are used for the benefit of humanity,
Right.
not for its detriment. We need to foster this sense of digital literacy and responsibility,
Yeah.
equipping ourselves and future generations
Right.
with the skills and knowledge
Yeah.
to navigate this rapidly evolving technological landscape.
Okay, so we've talked about preparing our finances. We've talked about cultivating a resilient mindset.
Yeah.
Understanding the role of government and technology in this new world order.
Right. Yeah.
What's the key takeaway you want listeners to leave with? Like, what's the one thing you really want them to remember?
I think the most important message is that we're living in a time of unprecedented change.
Yeah,
And that change can be both exhilarating and unsettling at the same time.
for sure.
But by embracing a spirit of curiosity, resilience, and collaboration,
Yeah.
we can navigate the challenges ahead and create a future that is both prosperous and just.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
but it all comes down to taking action.
Exactly. It's not enough to just understand these issues. We have to actually put that knowledge into practice.
So on that note, let's dive into some specific actionable steps that you, our listener, can take right now
Okay.
to prepare for the economic and geopolitical shifts we've been discussing. All right, so we've talked about all these economic storm clouds that seem to be gathering, but, knowledge without action, it's like a ship without sails.
Yeah.
So let's chart a course towards some financial preparedness for our listeners.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
I think the first step is to just take stock of your current financial situation.
Okay.
It's like checking your ship's supplies before you set sail, right?
Mhm.
Review your income, your expenses, assets, debts.
Okay.
Understanding where you stand financially is really crucial for making informed decisions.
So it's time for a good old-fashioned budget checkup.
Exactly.
What comes next?
Think about adding some ballast to your portfolio.
Okay.
Consider assets that hold their value during turbulent economic times.
Okay.
Historically, precious metals like gold and silver have acted as safe havens during periods of inflation, economic instability.
Mm-hmm.
They provide a tangible hedge against those fluctuations of traditional markets.
So diversifying beyond stocks and bonds with some precious metals, that could be a strategic move in this climate.
It could be, yeah.
What other steps can our listeners take to prepare for a potentially rocky financial road?
Well, beyond the financial preparations,
Yeah.
there's also the psychological aspect.
Okay.
Remember, weathering a storm, it's as much about mental fortitude as it is about financial strategy.
So we're talking about prepping our minds as much as prepping our portfolios?
Exactly.
How do we go about doing that?
One way is to focus on cultivating resilience and adaptability.
Okay.
And you can do that by really nurturing those strong relationships you have with your family, your friends, your community.
Right.
Having a supportive network, that's absolutely invaluable during challenging times.
Yeah, there's truth in that saying, a burden shared is a burden halved. It's about knowing that you have people you can rely on for emotional support and also for practical help when you need it most.
Right, and it's also about developing this growth mindset,
Okay.
believing in your ability to learn and adapt to new challenges.
Okay.
That might mean exploring different career paths,
Right.
maybe picking up some new skills, or simply being open to new experiences.
Yeah, I mean, in a world that's constantly changing, adaptability is essential. It's like learning to surf, right? You've got to be able to ride those waves instead of getting wiped out.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And this adaptability, it extends to our finances as well.
Okay.
Perhaps you explore some additional income streams, or you think about acquiring practical skills that could be valuable in a shifting economic landscape.
So it's all about being proactive and taking control of your destiny.
Exactly.
But let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
We've focused a lot on individual preparedness,
Right.
but what about the bigger picture? Are there opportunities emerging in the midst of all this economic uncertainty? Should we be looking for those as well?
Absolutely. Disruption often breeds innovation.
Hmm.
When the status quo is shaken, it creates space for new ideas, new businesses, new ways of doing things.
So instead of just hunkering down and waiting for the storm to pass, We can look for ways to, like, ride those waves of change.
Exactly. Maybe this is the time to explore that business idea you've had brewing in the back of your mind.
Right.
Invest in learning a new skill that's in high demand,
Okay.
or even reevaluate your career path and see where the emerging opportunities lie.
That's an incredibly empowering message. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving in the face of all this change.
Exactly. And that brings us to our final thought for you today.
Okay, I'm ready.
Don't fear the future. Embrace it.
Okay.
Stay informed, be adaptable, and cultivate resilience.
Right.
The world is changing, yes, but that change brings incredible opportunities for those who are ready to seize them.
I love that. That's a fantastic note to end on. We've covered a lot of ground today. From deciphering Warren Buffett's moves to understanding the complexities of the yield curve, from navigating these global tensions to harnessing the power of a resilient mindset.
It's been quite a deep dive,
It really has.
and we commend you, our listener, for taking the time to explore these critical topics with us.
Absolutely. Remember, knowledge is power. And by understanding the forces that are at play in the world, you can make more informed decisions about your life and your future.
Exactly.
If you found this deep dive insightful, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop questioning. The world is full of fascinating information just waiting to be discovered.
And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to create the next big idea that helps us navigate the challenges and opportunities of this ever-changing world.
That's the beauty of these deep dives. They're not just about absorbing information, they're about sparking new ideas and empowering ourselves to make a difference. Until next time, keep diving deep.
Keep diving deep.